Today I want to chat with you about how we can inflation-proof our prepper pantries. Hi sweet friends, I'm Mary and welcome to Mary's Nest, where I teach traditional cooking skills for making nutrient-dense foods like bone broth, ferment, sourdough, and more. So if you enjoy learning about those things, consider subscribing to my channel and don't forget to click on the little notification bell below. That'll let you know every time I upload a new video. Even if you've not been tuning into the news, you may have noticed when you go to the grocery store that prices on certain items are starting to increase. I usually shop at our local grocery store as well as Costco and Sam's. And when I was shopping at Costco, I was surprised that the prices that I had been used to paying for certain items had gone up, and in some cases rather considerably. Now I want to mention, if you open the description below underneath this video, I'll have timestamps that'll basically indicate the different subjects that I'm going to talk about in this video. So if you want to jump around, it'll make it real easy for you. So how should we be inflation-proofing our prepper pantries during a time like this when prices do look like they're starting to go up? So to begin with, I think most of us are familiar with the term inflation, but if you're not, basically what I'm talking about when I say inflation-proof is that if we can buy something for $1 today, and then in 2 months or 3 months or 6 months, that same item that we bought for $1 is now going for $2, but we stocked our prepper pantry when the price was $1, we've basically inflation-proofed our prepper pantry because we have a nice supply on hand for which we paid $1 for. So 6 months from now, when that item is $2, we don't have to worry about buying it because we've purchased it at $1. Okay, so what's the first thing that we need to do? The first thing is we need to take an inventory of our pantry. And when I say pantry, I'm talking about our four corners pantry. Our working pantry, which we access every day, our refrigerator, our freezer, and our extended pantry, or what we call our prepper pantry. And speaking of the four corners pantry, if you are on a journey moving from a processed foods kitchen to a traditional foods kitchen, and you need help with what to put in your pantry, I have a 36-page pantry list. It's a free download over on my website, and I'll put a link in the description below. And that walks you through all of the foods that you want to start thinking about incorporating, and this is slowly, little by little. You don't go out and buy everything at once, but this list will help you to start thinking about real foods, traditional foods that you want to start incorporating into your pantry, into your kitchen, as you make that transition from a processed foods kitchen to a traditional foods kitchen. And I think you'll find the list very helpful because it's not just a list of items. I also have a lot of links to videos and printable recipes that show you how to use these foods to make meals. Once you do your inventory, then you know what you need. You know what you're low on, what you use a lot, what you need to stock up on, and so on and so forth. So I think you'll find that pantry list very helpful, very useful. And there's one other thing I want to add if you're new to the term prepper pantry. What that means is generally I often call it the extended pantry because I see it as an extension of my working pantry. But the prepper pantry or extended pantry is another place where you store backup supplies that can replenish your working pantry. So it's usually non-perishable items. And the nice thing about having that extended or prepper pantry is it allows you to stock up on things when they're on sale, and also when you can find something in bulk, and then you can store it in your prepper pantry and use that to then replenish your working pantry when your supplies go low. So that's a wonderful way to inflation-proof, basically, your working pantry. And it's also a wonderful thing to have on hand as a backup, those items in your extended pantry, if you're ill, if you lose your job, if the weather is bad, if there are shortages in the supply, problems with the supply chain, and then shortages at the grocery store, or if there are situations like we just went through in 2020, there's so many reasons to have an extended pantry so that you never find yourself in a situation where you've run out of food. Now, as you're doing your inventory, there's another thing you want to start thinking about. During 2020, I think a lot of us had changes in our households. We may have more people living with us, we may have less people living with us. So you really want to start focusing in on how many people you're going to be feeding and what types of food do they like. Because there's nothing worse than stocking up on foods that nobody's going to eat. You don't want to waste money. So once you've done an inventory and you see what you're going to need and you've taken into consideration how many people that you're going to need to feed, that's when you can put your list together and get ready to do your shopping. And the first thing that you want to do is just start looking for things that may be on sale and go to those type of grocery stores where you know that you've found good bargains in the past. I know many of you have told me that you've found exceptional bargains at places like the dollar store. The next thing that you want to do is to think about those things that you can buy in bulk, because the more that you can buy in terms of size, the lower the price per ounce or per pound or whatever the case may be comes down. Now, I really like to buy my grain in bulk. Now, I have a grain mill, I have a mock mill, I love it. I did a lot of research on my mock mill, or I did a lot of research on grain mills before I bought my mock mill, but I'm really happy with it. It's a stone grinding mill. And I was so happy with the Mock Mill that I contacted the people over at Mock Mill and asked them if they would give a discount coupon code for my viewers. And so be sure to open the description underneath this video, because all that information is in there. And you can use that discount for anything. If you already have a grain mill, that's no problem. They sell a lot of things, including ancient grains like einkorn, spelt, emmer, so on and so forth. And you can use the discount to get a discount off of whole grains. And they're just a wonderful resource. And so I like to buy my whole grain in bulk. I'll often buy it in 25-pound bags or 25-pound buckets. And then I've always got that on hand, because something you want to think about when you buy in bulk, there are a lot of foods that have very long shelf lives. And there are even some foods that are considered forever foods. And if that's something more that you want to learn about, I have a whole series like the Prepper Pantry videos, Prepper Pantry video series, where I talk about all the different foods that you can buy. You don't need anything fancy. You don't need anything like freeze-dried foods that are very expensive. You don't need any of that. You can shop for real foods at your grocery store, and not processed foods. You know, I'm a traditional foods home cook. I buy real food, and real foods, I have a lot of information about how so many real foods have very long shelf lives, and then how to store them properly so that they do last for a long time. So the things that I really like to buy in bulk, as I said, are whole grains. I buy rice in bulk. I buy dried beans in bulk. I buy powdered milk in bulk. There are a lot of things that you can buy in bulk and then store in a way that will extend their shelf life. And I know some of you have shared with me that you have apprehension about buying powdered milk, and I understand that completely. I try to search out powdered milk that has been low temp dried, not high temp dried, and preferably from cows that have been grass fed. And the reason that I do this and like to keep that type of product on hand is because in a shortage or in an emergency, or like I said, with illness or job loss or so many things, the fact that I can have some powdered milk that not only can be used to be reconstituted and drank, but can be used in recipes to add protein to the foods that I'm preparing. So that's why I like to keep it. But this again is all about personal choice. You buy the real foods that you like to eat and that you feel are the most, the least processed, so that and most usable to you. Now this is an example of rice that I've stored in a Mylar bag. These Mylar bags are very reasonable. You drop an oxygen absorber in and you can seal them. I use an iron. If you have a curling iron, you can use that too. I have a whole video series on how to properly store food and how to properly store different types of food. And I'll be sure to link to all of these in the iCards. If I run out of iCards, I'll put everything in the description under this video. But for example, I can buy rice in a 25-pound bag or a 50-pound bag at places like Costco and Sam's. And this is jasmine rice, and this is 5 pounds in here. And I put this in here on 9/20/20, so September 2020. And this will last me a very long time. Now, this is white rice. I do buy white rice. I tend to not buy a lot of brown rice because brown rice can't really be stored all that well. It's one of those whole grains that, because of its high oil content, does tend to go rancid very quickly and has limitations on how you can store it. But I do like white rice because I find it's a wonderful vehicle for getting other ways of nutrition into my family's diet. I can cook this in bone broth. I can add ghee or butter or another type of fat to it. And so I'm always looking for ways to incorporate better nutrition into our diet, and white rice can be a very nice vehicle for that. But this is a great way to store it. This has a very long shelf life. I have a blog post where I go over all the shelf lives of all the various items that you can store in your prepper pantry, and I'll be sure to link to that so you can read everything. And I believe it's the Utah State University has a wonderful extension service where they go into great detail on how to store food in bulk and what you can store safely, and how long the shelf life will be when stored properly. So, and I link to all of that, all of those resources in the blog post. And they also have wonderful printouts. I think you'll find it very interesting. And that leads me to, I'm looking over there across my table, I've got some canned goods on my table. Canned goods actually have a very long shelf life, and that's another article that I linked to in the corresponding blog post that I'm talking about. The United States Department of Agriculture basically says that store-bought canned goods can pretty much last forever. If stored properly. And that means, in a cool, dark place, away from water, so on and so forth. And granted, yes, when they're opened 25 years from now, they may have degraded a bit in nutrition. But I found this information fascinating, and that they talk about how the sell-by date really just means when it needs to be sold, but they're not really indicating that it's gone bad. And generally, it can still be quite good and quite nutritious 5 years after its sell-by date. But interestingly enough, on the USDA site, which I linked to in that blog post, they say pretty much indefinite if stored properly. So there are a lot of things you can stock up on and store correctly to extend their shelf life so that you're really protecting your pantry from inflation. Because if we do continue to see prices going up, what we buy today and store properly will serve us very well in terms of protecting our grocery budgets from not having to buy these things 6 months or a year down the road when the prices may have increased significantly. And not only do we need to worry about the prices increasing, if you've been following on the news or reading in the newspaper, there also are sometimes shortages in the supply chain. So you may find that sometimes when you go to your grocery store, there are certain things that are simply not in stock, and in some cases may never be coming back into stock because certain food companies are just sort of shrinking what they're offering because of problems with the supply chain in terms of problems of hiring people to work in the factories and so on and so forth. So there's a lot going on under this umbrella, so to speak, of the food supply. We not only may have inflation to deal with, we may also have shortages in the supply chain. And when it comes to stocking your extended pantry, you can even start with as little as $5 a week added to your grocery budget. And little by little, you'll be able to build up your supplies. I have a video where I show you how to start with just $5 addition into your grocery budget and how to go about it and what are the type of foods you should buy. And before you know it, you're going to have a 2-week supply and then a month supply and then maybe a 2-month supply. And it's really up to you how much backup you want in your extended pantry. Some people are happy with a couple of weeks, some people a couple of months, sometimes 6 months, a year. It's really a matter of what you feel you might need. So don't feel that you need to rush out and buy a lot of stuff right away. If you're just starting with $5, you can do this. Because there's no need to panic. There's no need to have a lot of anxiety about this. Once you have your plan in place, and I talk about this more in my Prepper Pantry series, as to why we need a Prepper Pantry, but it's not about hoarding. It's about having a plan in place and just following through with that plan little by little every week. And so if you can start this week, and then within 6 months, you've got a nicely stocked extended pantry, and prices start to go up over the next 6 months or over the next year, you're still ahead of the game because you started now. But there's no reason to panic, no reason to have anxiety. You've got your plan in place with your pantry list, with your inventory, and you just start working through your list. So do your inventory, think about how many people you have to feed and what they like to eat. Try to shop the sales best you can, buy in bulk when you can and what you can, and then store what you buy in bulk properly to extend its shelf life. This is going to help you tremendously to inflation-proof your pantry. This is another way that you can really inflation-proof your pantry if you garden. And it can be something as simple as a sunny windowsill, or a patio garden, or a full-fledged kitchen garden. And I have a video where I discuss some of my favorite books for starting a kitchen garden. And the reason that I like them is because they don't require you to have a big garden. They talk about windowsill gardening, patio gardening, and then, just sort of your smaller kitchen gardens. And the nice thing about gardening is that there's nothing like growing your own food from seed. And once you learn how to start growing food from seed, you can harvest it and serve it. And if you have an abundance, you can home can it. And I have a whole series of videos where I talk with you about or teach you how to water bath can. Now, you can't water bath can everything, but it can be a nice entree if you're new to home canning. Other than the canning jars and the lids and the rings, you don't really need any special equipment the way you do when you pressure can. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But you can, if you grow tomatoes, which can be very easy to grow, you can home can your tomatoes and add them to your pantry, both your working pantry and your extended pantry, your prepper pantry. And I show you in the video how to water bath can tomatoes, and I go through a lot of details, step by step by step. Those videos are for the beginner, and I don't rush, and I take my time, and so that's a great place for you to learn. I also have videos where I show you how to water bath can pickles, and how to water bath homemade jams and marmalade. So there's a lot that you can water bath can. So if you grow these things in the garden, that's a real wonderful way to inflation-proof your pantry. And even if you're able to buy these things in bulk, like if you go to those pick-your-own type farms, or maybe you can get a bargain at the farmer's market who maybe has some, imperfect foods and things like that, that's the time to stock up and then home can these things. Now, if these are things that need to be pressure canned, then you have wonderful resources on YouTube. You've got Linda over at Linda's Pantry. You've got Lisa over at Sutton's Days. These women are really what do they say, like the divas of home canning. Alrighty, well now let's go forth and stock our prepper pantries. And if you'd like to learn more about how to stock your prepper pantry, be sure to click on this video over here, where I have a series of videos to show you why you need a prepper pantry, how to stock your prepper pantry with real food, how to do it on $5 a week, how to store your food properly, and lots more. And I'll see you over there in my Texas Hill Country Kitchen. Love and God bless.